What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and technically doing a Black Skull Dragon deck profile. So I'm really excited to do some for you guys because this deck was actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Wesley. And this deck is an extremely nostalgic deck that's based around one of the most iconic fusion monsters ever created, the Black Skull Dragon. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Getting your name, description, every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. And definitely give Wesley some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, we're playing 3 copies of the Summon Skull. Summon Skull is such an important combo piece in this deck that's going to help us summon out a bunch of really cool boss monsters in the deck, which is why we play 3 copies in this build. We then play 2 copies of the Red Eyes Black Dragon. Red Eyes Black Dragon is so easy to get to in this build, which is why we're just playing 2 copies in the deck to let us go in for our fusion plays. We're then playing a single copy of the Dark Magician, the ultimate wizard in terms of attack and defense. This card is a great one in the deck to help us go for Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. We then play 3 copies of Archfiend's Awakening. Archfiend's Awakening is a really spicy boss monster in this deck because this card is great to be able to summon in this build because this card's name becomes Summon Skull while in the field, but it's still treated as an Archfiend card. It cannot be destroyed by battle except by battle with a ritual monster, and cannot be destroyed by monster effects except those of ritual monsters. And if this ritual summon card you control is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card, you can instantly special summon out a Summon Skull from your hand, deck, or graveyard, helping us summon out our copy of Summon Skull to our side of the field, which is a really cool effect to be able to summon this card out. It's really difficult for your opponent to deal with this card because it's basically untouchable except by spells and traps and ritual monster effects, so it's really tough for your opponent to deal with this card. We then play 3 copies of Manju of the 10,000 Hands. Manju is definitely a 3-up in the deck, so when this card is normal summoned out to your side of the field, lets you add a ritual monster or a ritual spell from your deck to your hand, which is going to help us search out our copy of Advanced Ritual Art or a copy of Archfiend's Awakening so we can summon out one of our boss monsters. We then play 3 copies of King of the Swamps. King of the Swamps is very important in this build to be able to use because this card can be used as a fusion substitute monster to go in for our fusion plays, or it can be used to search out polymerization, which is really important in this deck to help us get to polymerization so we can go in for all of our fusion plays. We then play 2 copies of Aluber. Aluber is really good in this deck as a 2-0 to be able to use the Branded Fusion package in this deck, and this card does search out Branded Fusion, which is why we're playing this card in the build, because we can basically use Branded Opening to summon this card directly from our deck, and then search out Branded Fusion or Branded Red directly from our deck to our hand so we can go in for fusion plays. We then play 2 copies of Fallen of Albaz. Fallen of Albaz is definitely a 2-of in the deck. This card is basically a walking super polymerization, but it also helps us go in for our Branded Fusion plays, which is amazing because it can help us summon out Black Skull Dragon or other awesome fusion monsters. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Branded Fusion. Branded Fusion is definitely a 1-of in the build to help us go over all of our fusion plays in this deck, and this card is just one of the most powerful fusion spells ever created. We play a single copy of Branded in Red. Branded in Red is really good to set to your side of the field off of Albion's effect, because this card is a great ability. It's actually a quick play spell, so we can activate this card during the opponent's turn to target a Despian monster or a Fallen of Albaz in our graveyard, add it back to your hand, then we can fusion summon into a level 8 or higher fusion monster from our edge deck by banishing its materials listed on it from our hand or field, which is a great effect to help us go for a bunch of different fusion plays using this card. We then play just 2 copies of Red Eyes Fusion. Red Eyes Fusion is a great 2-of in the build to help us step into Black Skull Dragon or even Archfiend Black Skull Dragon, but it's a great card in this deck to help us go in for fusion plays. But the reason I'm only playing 2 copies in this build is because it makes it so that we cannot normal or special summon during the turn you activate this card, except with this card, which is a little bit of a downside, which is why I just play 2 copies in the build. We then play 2 copies of Dragon's Mirror. Dragon's Mirror is great great as a 2-0 in the build to basically just follow up our fusion plays by banishing the materials from the graveyard to be able to fusion summon a dragon fusion monster, making it really easy to summon out our boss monsters using this card. We then play 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. Allure of Darkness is very important in the deck because we play so many dark monsters in this build. This card just helps us draw in the deck by drawing 2 cards and then banishing a dark monster from our hand. We then play 3 copies of Polymerization. Polymerization is really good in the deck as a 3-of to help us fusion summon into the exact fusion monster we want to, and just a really cool fusion spell to help us go in for our plays. We then play 3 copies of Fusion Deployment. Fusion Deployment is really good in the deck as a 3-of because we can actually reveal Black Skull Dragon, summon either Red Eyes Black Dragon, or summon Skull directly from our deck to our field off Fusion Deployment, which is amazing. And we're pretty much only going in for fusion plays in this deck, so Fusion Deployment is really good in the deck as a 3-of. We then play 3 copies of Advanced Ritual Art. Advanced Ritual Art helps us summon out our copy of our Summon Skull Ritual monster, which is amazing in this deck to help us send a copy of Summon Skull to the graveyard, and then summon out a copy of our Ritual monster. This card is very important in the deck to send Summon Skull from the deck to the graveyard to actually Ritual Summon, making this card a really good 3-of in the build. We then play 3 copies of Branded Opening. Branded Opening is really good to help us summon our copy of a Luber directly from our deck to our side of the field, which is an amazing effect to instantly get a Luber on the field so we can search out Branded Fusion from our deck to our hand and go in for a fusion play. It's an amazing play to be able to use in this deck. This card also gives us protection for our fusion monsters, because if a fusion monster in control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish this card from the grave instead, which is a great ability. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with 2 copies of Archfiend Black Skull Dragon. This card is one of our main boss monsters in the deck, and a really cool boss monster to be able to summon that requires a level 6 Archfiend normal monster, meaning Summon Skull, plus a Red Eyes normal monster, meaning Red Eyes Black Dragon, to summon this card out to your side of the field. This card can only special summon this card once per turn, and if this card attacks or is attacked by an opponent's card, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. And if damage calculation is performed involving this fusion summon card, at the end of the battle phase, you could target a Red Eyes normal monster in the graveyard and inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attack in the graveyard, and then shuffle it into the deck, basically just doing a bunch of burn damage to your opponent, which is really cool. We then play a single copy of the original Black Skull Dragon. This card is really cool to actually summon out to your side of the field because it is very large, sitting at 3,200 attack points, and just really nostalgic to base a deck around. But you can really just reveal this card with your copy of Fusion Deployment if you leave it in your extra deck to be able to summon out your copy of your Summon Skull or Red Eyes Black Dragon. And play a single copy of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Dragoon is really cool to summon in this deck as well because this card is just a walking gate. Really tough for your opponent to deal with because it cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. It can pop cards on the field, and since we are going to probably be using normal monsters to summon this card out, we can actually pop monsters on the field and do burn damage to the opponent, which is insane. We then play 2 copies of Archfiend's Manifestation. Archfiend's Manifestation is really cool as a boss monster to summon this deck, as this card's name becomes Summon Skull while on the field, but it's still treated as an Archfiend card, and all Summon Skulls that you control gain 500 attack points, which is a great effect, and this fusion summon card you control is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card. You can actually special summon a Summon Skull from your hand, deck, or graveyard, basically replacing this card, which is really cool. We then play a single copy of Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade is just really good in the deck because it can spell move cards off the field, and it's a great card to summon off Branded Fusion. We then play a single copy of Lubellion. Lubellion helps us basically by shuffling our fusion materials back into the deck so we can go in for a fusion play, and it's a great card to make in this build off of Branded Fusion. We then play 2 copies of Albion. Albion is great in the deck as a 2-of because this card lets you send one, or you basically play 2 of them, 1 to summon and 1 to send to graveyard off your copy of Mirror Jade's effects. This card can basically, during the end phase, when it touches the graveyard, you can actually set a copy of your Branded Red directly from your deck, which is a great effect. You'll set it to your side of the field so you can go in for a copy of Guardian Chimera during the opponent's turn. And play a single copy of First of the Dragons. We play a lot of normal monsters in the deck, so this card is just a good option to be able to make with a copy of Polymerization, because this card has the ability it must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. You can only control one of this card, and this card cannot be destroyed by battle except by battle with a normal monster, and it's unaffected by other monster effects, which is really tough for your opponent to deal with this card. You then play a single copy of Guardian Chimera. Guardian Chimera is really good in the deck as a 1-of to be able to make in this build, because this card is just amazing to be able to make off of Branded and Red, because this card can let you draw 2 and pop a card, or pop 2 and draw a card, which is an amazing ability to be able to use. Plus, if you have Polymerization in your graveyard, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects, which is really cool. We then play a single copy of Chaos Angel, because it's really easy to make in this build, and just a great boss monster to be able to make overall, because it can basically spot move cards off the field. Play a single copy of Typhon, because it's useful in every single deck, which is why I play this card as a 1-of in the build. And then finally, a single copy of Zeus, because we can make this card on top of our copy of Typhon on the follow-up, which is really nice. So, that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played a Black Skull Dragon deck before, you should definitely give this deck a try, because it's a really fun deck to be able to play, and it's insane how powerful the fields you can actually make with this deck to OTK your opponent. So, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.